Hello and welcome back to Speed Demon Painting. Two videos today in one day because I am of course also going to go over the new releases coming in October from Warcradle Studios. After the previous month, which was of course dominated by Armoured Clash, the new game being released by the studios, we also have a new release for Dystopian Wars, so it's not just all Armoured Clash all the time coming from them. They are trying to balance some releases coming from Armoured Clash of course, but still giving Dystopian Wars some occasional releases as well. The Egyptians are getting some reinforcements by getting another skimmer called the Khartoum battlefleet set, which can build 3 new flagships for the faction as well, or the nation I should say, within the Sultanate faction, and we are getting a bunch of smaller release boxes for both the Empire and of course the Crown for Armoured Clash, which saw their big tidal wave of releases last month. And even though we saw most of the models for Armoured Clash last month, this is still quite interesting because I imagine this will be the sort of blueprint, if you will, for all future releases for Armoured Clash. As a quick reminder, the previous month saw the release of the Faction Starter set, which was the big box for those people interested in getting into a faction that had no shadow of a doubt that they would be buying the whole experience. But they also had the introductory sets as well for people who just want to sort of dip their toe into the game. Well, that is now being refined by these new Behemoth battle group sets that are being released. The first one being the Sovereign battle group set, which of course comes with the Sovereign landship that can still be built as the Monarch landship as well if you want. These big resin landships, however, do take some plastic pieces as well, mostly for the turrets and other smaller weapon systems, so you're also getting 2 plastic sprues on there as well, and of course those are going to be the heavy plastic sprues for the vehicles. Now I still haven't gotten my hands on these vehicle sprues yet, but I can imagine that there are a few pieces that will sort of be, transported to the Sovereign landship and the Monarch landship, so I'm not entirely sure which of the variants of the normal tanks, the Galahad Breacher or the Tristan Assault Transport, that you will not be able to make if parts of the kit are being used by your big resin landship. However, it would not surprise me if they came with a few extra pieces as well on there on the plastic sprues, just so that you're not too limited in what you can build from your plastics as well. Of course, they also build the Blackwatch Heavy Dragoons and the Blackwatch Assault Dragoons, which is mainly a difference in that shield arm compared to that assault arm as well, and of course you still get 5 bases of horse cavalry guard and the moderate heavy artillery, which can then also be built as a Boers heavy bombard as an alternate build. Armoured Clash is slightly different compared to Dystopian Wars. It's not so much about changing individual weapon systems on the ship. If things have a different weapon loadout, they will actually be a completely different unit entry in the Orbats, so that is why you see so many different entries that seemingly have a weapon swap. The Loashan battle group set is made pretty much according to the same principle. You get your big resin landship and it takes a couple of plastic parts on there, which can be found on the plastic sprue making most of the smaller tanks. You can either make the Wutai landship, which seems to be more oriented towards long-range artillery, or you can take the Loashan landship, which is a more direct assault vehicle, and of course with the leftover plastic parts you can still make some of the regular tanks that we've seen before, which are the Fangun medium tank or the Yangshu flame tank. In addition, you also get a couple of bases for a Green Banner Giselle team and the 2 variants of those mechanical dogs, the Tongshi Lion Automata, the Ryuishi Lion Automata, but also some of the jet bike bases, the Jinduin steam bikes. In addition, there are 2 possible artillery units, the Fengbao Heavy Launcher or the Sanglei Heavy Artillery, although as you can see, some of the turrets for the Sanglei Heavy Artillery are clearly used in the Wutai landship, so it remains to be seen if you're still able to make 2 of these Sanlei heavy artillery pieces if you have to use some of those parts on your resin flagship, or rather landship. In addition, we're also seeing the equivalent of Dystopian Wars squadron boxes with these regiment boxes. The first one being the Crowned Armoured Regiment, which has these units in there. Interesting if you do not want to, lose some of the parts, or you want to make the other builds that you might not be able to make if you make your resin flagship in a certain way, or if you just want to flesh them out. The game seems to work with multiple levels, point levels, that sort of indicate how big the battle is, and the smallest types of battle will only allow units of 2 of these tanks, for instance, if you build the same type, but you can then reinforce them either once or 3 times depending on how large the scale of the battle is. So you're always building your units in multiples of these plastic sprues, so that makes it quite easy to expand your force without having to do too much extra thinking. So if you're ever thinking about moving up to the biggest type of clash that you can get, sort of an apocalyptic battle, well, certain units can then be reinforced 3 times, and it would start making sense to buy these boxes multiple times. Or, if you're like me and you want to make your landships extra fancy, you can for instance buy one of the infantry boxes like they have showcased here, and then use some of the infantry models on your landship as well to bring some extra life to them, and well, you still have a bunch of other units that you can flesh out more if you want to. The Empire, of course, also gets its own armoured regiment, giving you 2 of the big artillery pieces, 2 of the medium tanks, and then, of course, some extra Giselle teams, some steam bikes, and these dogs. Interestingly enough, you can only make 5 bases with 2 sprues, which means that half a base is covered on one sprue and the other half on the second one. So yeah, this will probably also be a single reinforcement for your units that way. And if you're wanting to flesh out your Crown Infantry, you can get the Crown Infantry Regiment as well, which has these troop carriers as well, which can also be built as Glamis mobile guns, giving you some extra artillery support. But yeah, you'll also have more rifle platoons. Infantry is still going to be an important part of this game, despite the focus also being on tanks, because infantry and cavalry units will be the only unit type that will actually be able to capture objectives. So it doesn't matter how much you love tanks, you're still going to have to bring some infantry if you want to actually, win the game. That, however, doesn't mean that you have to spam infantry, because if you want to, you can protect them really well using these Sterling troop carriers, for instance, to carry your infantry up to the front line and not allowing your opponent to just shoot them to smithereens willy-nilly. So you will need some infantry, but it definitely does not mean that you have to spam them. And as a war host, I've been privy to do a bit of proofreading as well for the rules, and it does seem that you do not just want to rush your tanks into a position held by a lot of infantry, because if infantry is able to get an assault in on tanks, it does seem like the tanks will be in trouble, in a spot of bother, if you will. And yeah, it does seem that, infantry versus tanks versus aircraft is going to be a very interesting rock, paper, scissors style of gameplay. Similarly, if you want to reinforce your infantry regiments, you can now do so for the Empire as well. The Empire also seems to have a few more bases for the infantry. The Green Banner platoon seems to come with 8 bases, so it does seem like the faction that is focused more on, swarming your opponent with lots and lots of infantry as well, which is a very cool thing, because I really like the style of these models as well. I've also been thinking quite a lot on how I'm going to be painting them up as well, and yeah, I expect to make a video about the paint guides for all of these different factions really soon. So if you're looking forward to that, definitely subscribe to the channel and keep an eye out for any future videos. And with the Empire flame teams and rocket platoons, it does seem like they have a almost bigger emphasis on infantry than the Crown does, even more specialized, I should say, compared to the Crown. You're also getting these sort of trike launchers for them as well, along with some aerial infantry with these cool wing jump packs, but also these terracotta warriors, these automata, bringing a nasty bit of close combat punch, and I really do love the look of all of those models. Like I said at the beginning though, it's not all about Armoured Clash. Dystopian Wars definitely has not been forgotten and continues to be developed as well. And yeah, it shows with this new Khartoum battlefleet set for the Sultanate. Well, the Egyptian nation of the Sultanate. The Khartoum battlefleet set comes with a single resin hovercraft, and that hovercraft then gets 2 extra of these, well, the frontline sprues, I believe they are called, for the Egyptians, which can build 2 of these Mass 2 hovercraft and 2 of these Mass 1 hovercraft, along with some smaller specialized Kepri SRS tokens. The first flagship that you can make out of this one is the Khartoum battlefleet ship, which is sort of a happy medium between a long-range and a short-range firefighter, with a lot of gun batteries on them, 2 regular gun batteries and 2 heavy gun batteries, but also with the magnetic bombard mounted into the front as well. So yeah, I'm definitely keeping my eyes out on the Discord for well, the beta or bat that is going to accompany this new release. The other option is the Kadesh, which uses this ballista-looking weapon that we could find on the Sabah cruisers, if my memory serves me right. But this one is geared more towards aerial threats because it uses heavy rocket batteries and regular rocket batteries. And that's always a good thing if you're shooting at aerial units. These rocket batteries do not suffer too much from having to shoot at a range band further. The blog also mentions the Osiris option, which is not depicted on the blog itself, but can be found on the retailer website, which uses the gun batteries itself, but comes with torpedoes in the front, which makes it a unit that is more suited to hunting underwater targets, submerged targets, compared to the other 2 versions. This is of course pure speculation, but if that one for instance comes with maritime patrol, it's going to be an absolutely great unit at blocking off submarauders as well, which is a very welcome addition to the Egyptians because, well, they were a touch vulnerable to that, unless of course they took up a couple of Turkish allies along with them. And of course, the box comes with 2 plastic frontline sprues for the Egyptians as well, and the big Mass 2, well, hovercraft I should say, can either be built as the Sabah class, which comes with this ballista weapon in the front, the Mesektet class, which comes with 3 smaller weapons in there. It is mentioned here twice, unfortunately, on the blog post, but I believe the other one had to be the Manjet, which is the one that comes with the magnetic bombard in the front. But you of course can also make the Sobek class, which is a version that is focused more around torpedo weapons as well, if you're looking for some submerged firepower. The Mass 1 versions are either the Hashashin class or the, if I'm not mistaken, the Kopesh Scouts. The Hashashin is more about having a straightforward firepower version with a full torpedo salvo, whereas the Kopesh Scout trades that in for a micro torpedo salvo. However, it gets a couple of extra neat little rules such as deceptive deployment, hydrophone relay, and also the ability to sweep mines, which is incredibly handy because they also have the Vanguard rule. Anyway, it is great to see that Warcradle Studios said before that Armoured Clash isn't going to completely make all Dystopian Wars releases vanish. They have upped their production capabilities, apparently, having bought extra machines to do the milling of extra molds, but also to produce some extra resin parts as well. And yeah, it shows they seem to be able to keep up with 2 games, which is very, very promising for the future. That was it, however, for this video. I'm quite happy with all of these releases. I'm still hoping to get my hands on the new Battle for Singapore 2-player starter set for Armoured Clash soon, and yeah, expect a review video about that one really soon. In fact, as soon as I get my hands on it, it's going to be into the basement, recording everything, and just, yeah, making a couple of nice paint guides as well. Anyway, I do hope to see you in that next video. Until then, bye.